Good to have you with us as we head up to 12 away from 7 on the Friday edition of the South African Morning. A lot has changed since we spoke yesterday. President Ramaphosa has announced changes, a lot of changes to his cabinet. Some of the big ones are the new finance minister, Tito Mboweni, asked to be relieved. There's a new health minister after the suspended Zweli eNCA handed in his resignation hours before the announcement. eNCA, as you remember, was suspended due to the controversial Digital Vibes scandal. The president also announcing that state security would now move to the presidency. How significant is that? Well, let's find out. Some analysis on this. Political analyst Dr Ralph Mathekga joining us here on eNCA. Ralph, good morning to you. It's always a pleasure having you with us. I want to ask about state security in a moment because of the significance of what we saw in Gauteng and KZN. But before we get to that, what stood out for you last night? In 30 seconds, if you can, what was your takeaway from last night?
Good morning, Gareth, and good morning to your viewers. I think that the biggest thing is that this cabinet reshuffle, you can see that the president is sensitive to the views outside the ANC, the general public outcry. And I do think that that stood out quite significantly for me, that he has had to do reshuffle in this way just to reinstate that capacity within the public service. So I thought that it is a very interesting reshuffle in that sense, that it looks like it's been prescribed by external circumstances outside the ANC.
So let's talk a little bit about not just necessarily who is in. We've been looking at that, and I'll ask for your standout inclusion in a moment. I suppose the question could be, tell me if you agree, it's not so much who's in, but it's who isn't out of the cabinet. What's your take?
Very interesting indeed. I mean, I'll go straight there at the security cluster. Who isn't out? Bheki Cele remains the minister in the police ministry. A controversial, I would say, decision in a sense that within the security cluster is where we have seen the lapses that resulted in the looting. And there's been major shift in the security cluster. I mean, the removal of the defense minister and also taking state security to under the presidency, and yet actually this police remaining as it is in the middle of all of this. Clearly a political consideration. It was quite interesting move. But Gareth, also the departure of Tito Mboweni, his replacement by Godongwane as well, quite interesting move. Of course, Tito had hinted he wanted to leave, but also he was frustrated with lack of will, political will within the ANC to make certain decisions, to see through certain decisions with regard to reforms and so forth, including letting go of state-owned entities. So this could also signal that the president seems to be not really getting a stronghold when it comes to the economic cluster. When Godongwane comes in, he's an insider, he's a president's ally, but certainly you cannot say Enoch will be a champion of reform more than Tito Mboweni there. Quite interesting move in those areas, Gareth.
I'm really sure it is. I'm sure Tito Mboweni going to have a lot of time for his Twitter cooking and his chicken curries, and that pot plant going to get a lot of water as well. What also it stood out for me, Ralph, is not the in and out of ministers. Tell me your thoughts on this, and I'm sure many people are looking forward to this. State security now moving to the presidency. That's basically like the principal calling you in and saying, I like you, but you haven't done a good enough job. I think I should rather take over to take away the pressure from you.
It's a very interesting move. I mean, and I think that it is potentially controversial, Gareth. I mean, President clearly was frustrated with state security. We've seen at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry how things went about at state security, abuse of the slush funds, reports that there were some rogue intelligence officers, and then things precipitating into the looting, showing that that department was not really in touch with what was going on the ground as it came out, including other departments in the security cluster. And I think quite controversial there, Gareth. I mean, the whole idea of bringing it to the presidency, it shows that the president is concerned with its potential destabilizing effect on his administration. That is a poor state security. But also, I mean, people will be asking questions as to what does it mean that the president now wants to keep this department on such a closer leash, bringing it to the presidency. It will mean the president will be serving with that department very, very close to him. It is not it's a controversial move, Gareth, to take a department such as this, which is so critical, closer to you as the president, might end up with the views, people saying that the president is centralizing power. The president is undermining the normal chain of accountability in the bureaucracy, bringing this department so close to him. It could also be signaling that the president is actually concerned about the state security that seems to be on the loose. It could destabilize his project within the ANC. That, I think, we are going to discuss for many days. I would say, Gareth, it is not going to be a simple issue. There will be a lot of controversy as to what it means to the bureaucracy to have it under the presidency, this department.
And we'll unpack that, no doubt, one day when we have more time. Ralph, I'm going to ask you a last question, 30 seconds, before I say goodbye to you. So we've spoken about the police minister. Before I say goodbye to you, of all the inclusions, which one stands out for you as the most interesting or most significant?
Well, I would say that bringing Enoch Gojongwane to National Treasury is very, very significant. We will see what it means to reforms and so forth, but it's quite a huge move. But also Tandi Modise at the defense as well. It's a huge move, and I think you see a sense that the president really wants to consolidate his power hold within the critical areas in government. This, I think, is quite significant.
The one that stands out for me, Deputy Minister in the Presidency for State Security, Zizi Kodwa. One day when we have Ralph back again, I'll get his thoughts on that. But plenty of analysis, I can assure we're going to unpack each of these ministers, their deputy ministers. Who is in, who is out? What are the ramifications throughout the day here on eNCA?